Okay. It looks like we're going to start today's classroom session. Hi, my name is Noah. I'm one of the educators with Shortcuts, and today we're going to be looking at Anywhere. So, Anywhere is actually how the staff of a salon or a spa or a barbershop is able to look at their appointments for the week. So, we want to walk you through the steps on how do you give your staff access so they can bring that up. So let's jump right into it. So as with other presentations, we are recording this. We will be sending a copy of this link out to everybody. So whether you can't stick around or whether you just signed up to get this video for later in the day, we will send out the link as soon as it's available, and we will take questions at the end. So today's workshop, today's classroom, is essentially focused specifically in the Shortcuts online console. So we're going to look at how to access those online services, how to add a staff member to Anywhere, what are the different permission levels. So, of course, for security reasons, maybe you don't want your staff having access to absolutely everything. And, of course, how to access Anywhere. So, hopefully, most of you are familiar with the console, the Shortcuts Online console. This is where you would go to enable things such as online booking, when can customers make appointments, how many days in advance, etc., etc. This is also the place where there's a button, and this button appears if you're in the computer version, not in the mobile version. There's a person that's lounging in a sun chair, and that's called Anywhere. So that's where you would go to take a look at your appointments for the week. Now, this is what it looks like on the computer. When you log into the Shortcuts console on a mobile device, by default, you go right into Anywhere. So it just shows you your schedule or your appointments right away. So hopefully most of you know how to get into the console, how to log in. So this is the address, console.shortcutsoftware.com. Once you're there, you're going to log in with your email and a password. Now, hopefully, again, most of you know what your email, what your password is. If you haven't used it in a long time or you forgot what it is, let us know, let the help desk know, and we can actually reset it for you. So once you're in the console, how do you give permission for the staff so that they can look at their appointments? So you want to go to Site Settings, and it's preferable when you're making your administrator changes to use a computer. So just launch a browser, Chrome or Edge or whichever is handy, log into the console and go to Site Settings. Once you're in Site Settings, on the right side, you're going to Manage Users. And then you're going to select Add a New User. Now, when you press Add a New User, Shortcuts wants to know what type of person is this. So is this a person that's already in your system or is this a person that's outside? So you have two options, a user not associated with point of sale or a user that is a point of sale employee. The difference between those is the first option you would actually use when you're setting up, let's say, a business partner, somebody that doesn't necessarily work at the salon or the shop that you work at. The second option is the one that's most often used. These are people that are actually in your shortcut system, whether they're employees or receptionists, because the console is going to connect to your shortcuts computer and look at your list of staff members. So you'll choose the particular employee. And then now, if you're a multi-site location, you only have to set it up for one site because on the following screen, you can actually give them permission to access their schedule if the same employee works at multiple locations. So on the following window, after you choose the staff member, there's three important pieces of information you need to fill in. The email, which is what the employee will use to log into Anywhere, first name and last name. Now, first name and last name may auto-populate from your Shortcuts computer, but just make sure you also enter an email address. Then, at the bottom of the screen, this is where you set what permission levels you want to allow. So for the majority of the staff, you're really going to give them anywhere from 1 to 3 options. The first one that you should give them is employee access. Once you give them employee access, that means that when they log into the console, they can look at their appointments. and that's it. They can only look at their appointments. They can't make appointments, move appointments, or delete appointments. If the employee should also have those permissions to make and move appointments, then you're going to check two checkboxes: employee and appointment operator. The majority of sites that I work with, they give the staff those two permissions. Just because you have appointment operator permission doesn't necessarily mean you have the ability to make appointments for anybody else. It's really just for the self-employed. Now, the third option you may give somebody is CIC access. And what CIC access stands for is client information card. So let's say you have a tablet or some sort of computer that's available for the staff to bring up customer cards, look at their history, update their notes, put in a formula, things like that. If you want them to be able to access that tablet on the cloud and or even their own mobile device when they log into the console, you would give them CIC access. And you can limit when the employee can bring up customer cards. So you can set it so that they can only access it during business hours. And then once you make your permission settings, that's when you press save. So the employee is now going to get an email with their username and password. So let's actually log into the console and see this in real time. So I'm working with a site right now, Nuovo Salon Spa, and it just so happens that we're giving some of the staff permissions. So in the console, we're going to go to site settings. Oh, I have it set for Noble Barber. That's okay. On the right side, we're going to manage users. So if you're going to give somebody permission, follow these steps. Once you're in manage users, you're going to add a new user. Again, you have two options. Somebody that is not a point of sale employee, again, that would be like a business partner, or somebody that is a point of sale employee. Always choose the second option. If you're a multi-site location, you're going to select one specific site. In this case, Noble Barber has one site. And then Shortcuts is going to say, which employee are we going to give an account to? So I can say, perhaps Victoria is going to get an account. So we'll go to Victoria and then press continue. So up at the top, I would put in Victoria's email. Once I have that, then I would scroll to the bottom and I would choose what permissions Victoria should have. So again, employee allows her to look at her schedule, look at her appointments. Appointment operator and employee means she can look and she can also make her own appointments. And if she should have client information card access, that would be the third option. Now, for some of your managers or some of your receptionists, you have other options such as Site Manager and Site Manager Restricted. If your manager is fairly responsible for not only handling, of course, the actual shop that they work at, but also should have access to things like customer reviews or giving the staff permission to look at their schedule or even giving accounts to other staff members, that would be a full site manager permission. So they can do almost everything that you can do as an administrator. If perhaps they shouldn't have that much control and really should just have the ability to make appointments on other employee schedules, that's when you would make them site manager restricted. So they don't necessarily have the ability to make accounts or make administrative changes. So once you set those permissions and once you have the email, make sure to press the save button so the staff member can get a copy of their username and password. Now I'm going to go to the site settings window one more time. And if I scroll down on this window, this is where I have the option for when should the staff have permission to bring up the client card, if you give them that access. So should it be only during business hours? Should it be access anytime? Or should it be during normal business hours plus 30 minutes or 60 minutes before or after normal business hours? So that depends on your business And again, you don't necessarily have to give your staff permission to bring up client cards. That's an option. So make sure you hit save once you make your changes, and the staff will now have those appropriate levels of permission. When you give somebody access to the Shortcuts console, by default, that also allows them to have access to the cloud. And this is if your business is using the Shortcuts cloud. Now, if you have a very old version of Shortcuts, perhaps you don't have access to the cloud. So you probably need an upgrade. But if you go to the cloud, the staff, instead of seeing their own schedule for 7 days, would show them the full appointment book as if they were at the actual shop. So that's the difference between anywhere in the console, which focuses on one employee at a time, one schedule at a time, to the cloud, which gives them an appointment book that behaves very much like the Shortcuts point of sale. Now, on this window, you can further restrict their permissions. So just because they log into the cloud doesn't necessarily mean they have permission to make appointments for anybody else or to move appointments around or even delete those. So you can actually adjust those permissions by going to Menu, General Settings, and Roles. And if you notice on the left side, there's an employee role. And then if we click on the permission, the salmon colored permission link on the right side, we can fine tune those permissions. So maybe they should or they shouldn't have access to the appointment book or to make appointments or move appointments. So you have a lot more control over what they can see and what they can do in the cloud. And then once you press done and save all your permissions, then whoever has employee access for the cloud will have exactly the settings that you're allowing them, such as can they update their appointments, create appointments, view their appointments? Can they view appointments for other employees? Can they create appointments for other employees? And this is specific to the cloud. Now, I will review cloud settings in a future classroom session, but I wanted to make sure that everybody that's attending today understands that giving someone permission to the console will allow them to access the cloud. And again, that is if your version of Shortcuts is new enough and if you're actually using the cloud. So let's go back to our presentation. So today is actually a pretty short classroom session because when it comes to employee permissions, we want to make sure that you know how to configure it and how to access it. So now that you know a little bit more about that, we're going to open up the floor for questions. So if you have any questions on the console, if you have any questions on permissions, or even on accessing the permissions in the cloud, now's your chance. I'll give you a moment to either type out the question or to use the chat bar on the GoToWebinar. I'll give you a few moments to do that. And if I don't have any questions, and I don't think I do, I don't think I have a big turnout for today's classroom session. Everybody's probably at work right now. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap this up. So if you're watching this video after the fact, and you have any questions or you need to upgrade your Shortcuts because you're running an old build and you don't have cloud access, or you've never used the console, or you just need somebody to help you reset your password or to find out what you do have on your account, go ahead and give our customer care team a call. If you have technical questions, of course, our help desk is here. But if you have a follow-up question for me, you can also reach us at education@shortcuts.net. And you can also ask us questions on our social media. So whether you ask us on Facebook or Instagram at Shortcuts North America, we will get back to you. So this was a short classroom session. Thank you all for attending. We will be focusing more on the console and more on the cloud in the next several sessions. Also, we will be doing more advanced classroom sessions on the Shortcuts point of sale. So make sure you sign up for all those sessions, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day, everybody.